Home the gold.
He could be too far. No, he's streaking. Oh, what a catch!
And puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Darren Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Yo, Canada and the rest of the world, we're the Huckin podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo Wan, from the 6, Toronto, Ontario.
And I'm Danie Proby from Vancouver, BC. And together we are your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian Ultimate. It has been a long time since you heard the sweet, sweet sounds of our voices. And we would like to apologize, first of all. We are moving to an every other week system while the season and Ultimate is kind of on a bit of a hiatus in Canada. But I think it's potentially been 3 weeks by the time this comes out. We just kind of had some conflict with schedules, and I know that the US is still doing stuff and everyone's a little bit busy, including us. So I'd like to apologize for our regular posting. I know you are all yearning for good Canadian Frisbee content.
It's true. We get like probably 10 messages a day from different people saying, where's the episode? So keep those messages coming.
Yeah, lights a fire under our butts. We love doing this. It's just sometimes it just got to be that way, you know?
Yeah, life gets in the way. So I guess we'll do, what is it, like a 2-week recap? I don't even know what to share from my end. So Danie, I'm going to throw it to you first.
Yeah. So just like a personal anecdote, my partner Ari was supposed to go away. Was supposed to go away for 10 days on a silent retreat. But then I'm sure people know that there's been lots of flooding and stuff. So then all of that stuff was canceled because where it was canceled. So he's currently being silent in our apartment for 3 days. And luckily I'm not there because that would be very uncomfortable. But no phone, no TV, no nothing. Just sitting for days on end in our apartment. So I just think that that's a pretty cool thing. It would be really scary to do something like that. I don't think I have the cojones to sit with my own thoughts for that long. Yeesh. Anyways, on my own end, I just did a presentation, or I taught at 2 classes at Camosun College, which is in Victoria. I got to talk about social justice in sport in one class, and the other class I was talking about gender issues in sport. And it was really fun to do something like that and to kind of discuss something that I'm really passionate about. But to be the quote unquote expert was very, I was outside of my comfort zone. So it was a good challenge for me.
Hey, that's what we say here in the world now. It's like, you got to be okay with being uncomfortable, because I think that's where definitely personal growth happens. So Danie, appreciate you sharing that. I'll be honest, there's really not too much news on my end. Just continue to work at my job and just living life. I guess, continue to get my feet wet in the rock climbing sphere. One of our guests is big into that. That's coming up today. So, I guess a lot of ultimate people have transitioned to rock climbing, and I guess I'm one of them. I'm no expert climber, but slowly getting there. So, that's what I do in my spare time is rock climb.
I usually run too. And I was actually thinking about you today while I was running, because Traffic is doing a 100K November run challenge on Strava. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And it's the end of the month. I'm like, crap, I have to do 30 more K really quickly. I'm like, Theo could do like 12K in his sleep. And I remember you were doing a lot of running for a while, but you're not running much. It's mostly rock climbing now.
Yeah, I've retired from the long distance running game. I did my marathon, would have been about it actually just over 13 months ago. So I did a marathon, and it was an accomplishment I was able to do. And I don't really have yearnings to do it again anytime soon. So I've kind of retired from the long distance running game, but I appreciate you thinking about that. Did you get your 100 kilometers in though, Danie?
I mean, it's not the end of November, yo. You got to chill on me a little bit. I have, I think, 22K left to do, which is no problem. It's just whether I have time in the day to do a 10K in the next couple of days. Totally do. But shout out to Naomi Morcilla, because she got past 100 so long ago that she's like, you know what? I'm just going to do 200 this month. And I'm like, F you. I'm just trying to get to 100. She's so fast. It's crazy.
So is the 100K like just what they call in the running game easy runs, or is it like you're doing like high efforts? Like, is it just you pick? Like, what does that look like?
I think a lot of people are between like sub 5 to sub 6. That's kind of the general pace across the board. So anywhere from like 4:30 to maybe even 6:30 per kilometer is kind of the pace that we're seeing in general. And it fluctuates. Like even when I'm running, sometimes with my dog, sometimes there's hills, just fluctuates. So it's a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. And I know the audience, they appreciate, the little life update here, but I guess we'll kick into some news. There is a little bit of news because we actually missed something, Danie, that we wanted to share about last time. I think the announcement came in like a day like after we recorded or something like that, and we just missed it. So we'll head to the news right now.
We now have breaking news.
So, welcome to the news. The team that we missed, these are all the WUCC, so the club championships. We've been announcing the teams as we've been hearing that they've been accepting bids, or as WIFDF has been awarding more bids because other countries don't need them, for example. And so we would like to congratulate Union on getting into WUCC. So now, is that 4 mixed teams now that have made it?
Yes. Lab from 2019, a red flag out of yours truly over there, Vancouver, and PBHG. So yes, that is correct. 4 teams. To be honest, we were broadcasting that bronze medal game at UCI, which feels like an eternity ago, and we weren't really super prepared for it because we didn't know the stream was going to happen. But anyways, they were playing Quest, and bronze medal. I was like, okay, it's a big game, but I didn't really at the time realize that there could be WUCC bid implications in that game. So congrats to Union for kind of, people might maybe not sleep on that game, but putting your best foot forward and winning that matchup and being able to go to WUCC. Because I have a friend on Union who was on the 2017 team when they tried to make it, and they lost to Banana Cutters in the quarterfinals out of yours truly, Vancouver. And they weren't able to make WUCC that year. So 4 years later, they get some redemption. They get to go to beautiful Lebanon, Ohio. So congrats. You'll be seeing them there, Danie.
Yes. And so now there's 4 teams in mixed. There's 5 teams in the women's division.
Yes.
So Stella's going as well. So it's, wow, my brain. Sixers, Traffic, Fusion, Iris, Stella. That is incredible. Yes. Get to see all of our homies. Now, if you are, say, the team that's playing against Stella for 5th, sorry, at that tournament, yeah, it would have been for 5th. Like, are you thinking in your head, we might be playing for a bid here? Or are you letting everyone play? Like in that game, like, do you think that there's a chance there's going to be a 5th bid? Like, but you know what I mean? Like in terms of like deciding how you play out that last game of a very short season, if you actually have the knowledge that this is even possible, maybe the game would have been different for some teams. Because I think they're playing against Salty.
Yes.
If I am correct.
They do the cheer that, I don't know my periodic table. So if you're in the audience, I think it's NACL, if I'm not mistaken. Fact check me on that one. But they cheer NACL like for Salt, and I think that's hilarious. But yes, Salty was unable to get the bid. And I'm feeling also bad for the 4th place open team in Phoenix, because they were on the doorstep, or had it on offense on Universe Point there against Goat for 3rd place, and maybe they thought they would be playing for a bid. And actually, if Phoenix had won that game, they would have been playing Mephisto in the 2nd place game. So tough for them, and they'll be sitting at home instead of being in Lebanon, Ohio. So tough. But well, speaking of some international flavor here, got to see a tournament. I skimmed through the finals last night. I didn't watch the whole game, but I got to see some familiar faces. I was on a friend of mine, Toli Vasilyev's Instagram, and he was posting a bunch of stories about this. I think you saw it too, Danie. So him and a bunch of friends from other countries, and including ours, went to Spain, España, to play in the Madrid Cup. And there were some people from, a lot of people from Toronto. I'm not sure if there are any Vancouverites there besides Tolley there. Danny, maybe you can correct me, but I know Adam O'Donnell was there, Jarrett Marin, Andy O, Ochterlony, Kieran Charnock, Jeff Bomber Powell, Andrew Carroll. So they were all kind of Remy Ojo. Don't want to miss anyone there. So JJ Edwards too, as it's coming to my mind. So they all went and played as, do you know how to say this, Danny? Los Otros? Los Otros?
Los Otros.
Los Otros. I don't know what that means, but they went and played and came in second, losing to a very good team in Clapham. So I recommend you check it out. Alti.tv has it on their YouTube channel. You get to check it out. So, and was there anyone from Vancouver on that team, Danny? Or maybe
Not that I know of, but I could be wrong. There could be some folks that Tolley would have brought with him, but it was pretty funny to follow along with his stories. He had like a story of somebody on a stretcher, and I was like, just dropping like flies over there.
Yeah, I saw that. So, in between the time that we've recorded, Danny, we also got to do something pretty cool. And why don't you share what that was? Because some people that were listening were actually at this session, but not everyone, obviously. So why don't you share about that?
Yeah, so we got the distinct pleasure of being asked to be on a panel about media proliferation, or kind of the way that media has a potential to change the game in Ultimate, for the Ultimate Canada Conference. And we were on the panel with Becky Thompson, who is pretty infamous in Canadian Ultimate now, but if you don't know, she's over in England right now, but she was doing all the commentating for so many games. She's got an amazing voice for commentating, like super smart. And she's working in sports over there, which is awesome. And then we also had Charlie Eisenhood with us. So we were amongst greatness and royalty, really. I felt really, I would say out of the element, kind of. I was like, how do I even answer these questions? I've been in media for like a second, but it was really fun. How was your experience?
Yeah, this is going to sound like I'm a fanboy right now, but
yeah, but you are.
But I am. Charlie, I could listen to you speak all day long. He just has the voice and just his wisdom and just knowledge. Like, honestly, there were times when they were asking us questions. I'm like, just ask Eisenhood. Like, you don't need to ask us. Just ask Eisenhood because he knows what's up. Ask Becky too. She's working at CNN. Like, they got the answers. So, it was really humbling to be able to be part of that panel. And, there were some fun and games. We're talking about some fun stuff, but also some serious topics as well about how to increase diversity in Ultimate coverage, not just how we cover it in terms of what games we show and things like that, but also who is on the back end of that, right? So that was one of the big topics there, Danny, that we talked about.
Yeah, it was cool to hear from them. And having been in a mastermind with Charlie, I know that he does have a lot of opinions and he has a lot of thoughts, and he does a good job of holding back. And he was trying to leave space, but yeah, you and I were just like popcorn out. We're like, come on, Charlie, this one's for you, big guy. Let's go. But he does leave space for others, which I appreciate, because he's been doing it for a long time, and he's been pouring his heart and soul into Ultiworld and has done amazing things for it, and employs lots of people now, and it's such a huge company. So it's pretty cool to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, thanks for having us on Ultimate Canada.
Yeah.
One more news item. Danny, you wrote this one, so I don't even know what this news item is.
Can you read it
tell us
for
what
us?
it is.
Can you read what I wrote?
Yeah, I'm going to read it. So, Huckin fam, we share the secrets. Sometimes you'll notice I'm looking this way. Danny, I think, has it right on her laptop, so it's a little different.
Don't tell me my secret. I memorized
I have a screen. And so we have like topics, and I think Deep Look, I think you do this too, Deep Look. So Charlie, Keith, I think you do this as well. I don't think you're ad-libbing the whole time. Some of it. But on this note, it says beach IDK, which I don't know. So beach I don't know. That's your topic, Danny. Tell us all about it.
I was just like, what news has there been? I feel like, as I said, Ultimate's kind of in a bit of a hiatus, and there's not necessarily so much to say other than I know that the coaches for the teams that have been announced have been kind of like poring over references and poring over videos. So the process has started, which is exciting. And there was an announcement from WIFDIF that some of the divisions did get canceled because of lack of interest. Like great grandmasters and grandmasters women and mixed, I believe, were canceled. I think grandmasters open still exists, but I think some of the other divisions older than masters were shut down or whatever. Yeah, snipped.
What's great grandmasters?
Like, what's the age? God,
yeah.
We should know this. If it's 30 for women as masters, and I think it's 35 for great grandmasters.
33. I'm close to master's age. That's why I know.
For men, sure, but I'm talking about for women. What would grandmasters be for a woman? Maybe great grandmasters is 40 plus for women, but there's still some women that are 40 that compete in senior. So I don't know.
Yeah. I still have an issue with the name. Like senior.
Senior? I agree.
Yeah, because it sounds like we're talking about old people, but we're talking about the adult division. So why don't we just call it adult? Anyways, that's a whole other debate.
Masters are adults too, I guess is the theory. The regular division. That's classist, Theo.
I did say that and was
did not go over well.
Fact checked heavily there. So cannot call it the regular division. So that's our news right there. That's our news segment. We ad-libbed the final part, but sometimes have to do that.
Yeah, and so we're both wearing VC stuff right now. I'm wearing the Lost Generation Team Canada jersey. Theo is repping his Huckin Revo hoodie. We are going to hear from VC right now. This episode is sponsored by VC Ultimate. Now, if you know me, or you've seen me on the fields, or you've seen me coaching, you know I'm repping VC Ultimate. VC is a company that proudly puts values and company before profit. VC is the world's best source for quality, design, and all of your ultimate needs. So check out VC to get your gear now.
Hey, this is Taya Malile, one of the captains of the University of Toronto Women's Ultimate Team, and you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
Welcome back. It's our main event. We got some honored guests on the podcast. Really excited to talk to them about their World Games tryout experience and that whole entire thing that's been happening. So we got 3 guests here. We're going to let them intro themselves. We'll start off with Beauche out of I guess now in the West Coast or like living in Quebec, or where are you located? Tell us your name and how long you've been playing Ultimate.
So my real name is Marie-Ève Beauchemin. I live now in BC, Vancouver. I'm from Quebec. And yeah, that's it.
All right. And you played for Traffic recently, and then you've played for Iris before, correct?
That's right, yeah.
And I guess we'll go East Coast now to some Ontario kids. Alyssa, we'll start with you. Tell us a bit about yourself.
So I'm Alyssa. I'm currently living in Waterloo, and I've been playing Ultimate for 7 years. I started with PPF, which is a team out of Waterloo, and then recently started commuting to Toronto to play Sixers in 2019.
And speaking of Toronto, our last guest here, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mike. How long have I been playing Frisbee for? I think 7 years as well. I'm currently living in Peterborough with my parents. Rock on. Peterborough's great. Moving back into Toronto, I think in like a week and a half. So I really haven't figured that out much. And what teams have I played for? I've played for GOAT, Rush, a couple Team Canadas, and Toro. Oh, Toro and Queens Ultimate. Can't forget Queens. But yeah, that's my Ultimate stuff.
Nice. Appreciate that.
And I know that Beauche and Alyssa, you both have Team Canada stuff sprinkled in there as well. And it's just funny to like say the teams you've played for. Like it's just so casual. Oh, and Team Canada too, I guess. So let's dive into the World Games process for all of you. First of all, congratulations for making this roster. It's the list of people that they were looking at. And from what I saw at the tryout in Vancouver, not an easy feat and something that only people could dream of for the most part. So I am curious to hear from all of you what the actual tryout process was like. So not how you got to the tryout or any kind of prep like that, specifically being at the tryout, the drills, the scrims, playing with people you didn't know, potentially playing in a system you didn't know, anything like that. So let's start with Alyssa.
Yeah, I mean, if you hadn't already heard, the East Coast tryout was insanely windy. Like probably the worst wind I've ever played in. So that definitely was like a factor that I think affected everyone. But besides that, like I enjoyed the drills. It was really great to finally play like mixed ultimate at like an insanely high level, because I think that's one of the things that I don't necessarily like about mixed ultimate is just like not everyone's at that level, but playing like with the people we were at tryouts everyone was like 100% at all times, and it was amazing.
Awesome. And Mike?
Yeah, I mean, Alyssa put it really well. It was so windy. But that being said, there's a reason it was windy. It was because it was hosted in the same city at the same time as CUUCs. And that tournament has to be miserable every year. It's like a law or something. I'm not entirely sure, but
it's true.
Yeah, so it wasn't a surprise when I heard they were both at the same time that it was going to be that bad. But yeah, it was honestly, the whole process was really interesting. Again, Alyssa said it really well. It's really nice to play mixed, and it's also really nice to play with, again, it's like a hand-picked selection of what the coaches think is the best showing of that region. And that's, again, always a pleasure to put the cleats on with all those people. And again, it's definitely a recurring group. Makes sense, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, very windy, and very intense, but good overall for sure.
Now, if we flip over to the West Coast, it was stunning out. So, Bosch, can you talk about your tryout experience?
Yeah, so I know about CUUC and weather, but here in BC it was different, and it's raining all the time. So we were very, very lucky. Tryouts were at weird times, so it was like 6 to 10 p.m. and then 9 to noon. So it was kind of a big 2 days of tryouts. For myself, it's been like 10 years that I haven't played mixed. Like I've played league, but it's not the same. There's always like, as you said, Liz, like some good players and some others. And so it was very interesting to get to play with like mixed. And for traffic, we were away the week before. We were at nationals, the US nationals. So it was like the girls, we were very tired at the tryouts, but it was very cool to still grind and get to play the highest frisbee possible. Yeah.
Now, Bosch, I know you have played in a lot of vertical systems, but I don't think a lot of the traffic people at that tryout were that familiar. Like I actually heard people asking on the sideline, how do I cut out of a stack? And that's like a hard thing to do mid tryout. So I know you have a little bit more experience than that, but did you notice that there was a little bit of a difficulty in the scrimmages because of not really understanding that system properly, or did you think it was smooth sailing?
I think there's work to be done. I think the flow, I think like the set plays are good, but once we try to do the flow, people have a tendency to try to like go wide, and then you're like, no, but like go in the middle. And so I think, yes, there's like differences for sure, and like understanding is very basic, but I don't know why it's more complicated here because we don't play it actually. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think there's work to be done.
That's a good answer.
And for the East Coasters here, were there the same issues with the system? And also, what was sort of like the breakdown of drills to the scrimmage for those who've never been to a World Games tryout? What was it like? Was it mostly scrimmage? Were they mixing up teams? What was that like? So, Mike, do you want to answer first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit more about what the systems was like there in the East Coast.
For sure. I think one thing to note was, again, the tryouts were really well run. Like the organization behind the tryouts was thought out. And in the primary sense of you stuck with the same people throughout the majority of the tryout. So the morning of the first day was very chaotic. Most of the people you haven't played with, which is again organized in a fashion. You haven't played with these people. Everyone's playing different systems. Everyone's getting their wires crossed. But, as that day progressed and then going into the second day, you could really see that people started to realize what others' tendencies were and the systems they preferred. So I think, initially, like any tryout or any time you play with a new group of people, it's very chaotic. But for the most part, I would say the majority of people settled in to like actually kind of understand what everyone else was, doing.
And Alyssa, anything to add there?
Mike put it really well. Like, just, you go from like not having played with these people to like having a 2-day tryout with them, and you learn, the systems that they like to run and how they cut. I also think that both the coaches, like Carla and Maddie, on the second day realized like, okay, some of these drills just like aren't realistic with the wind. So we kind of got to do more scrimmaging, which was really fun. And then like, it was also super relieving to hear like, okay, Carla being like, we are just doing vertical systems. And I'm like, okay, like, because I can imagine like for like people on the West Coast going into like a system that you don't normally run, I would have been definitely freaked out. But I think like going into it, knowing the vertical system, like we run it on sixers and everything. So it was really fun.
Yeah, we just want to get more insight, and we're going to do that with this next question as well, because people might be listening and they say, hey, I want to be in this chair that you're in right now and eventually be on the Huckin podcast for World Games, in years later. So we're going to give them some insight right now. What preparation did you do to get ready for the tryout? So not just physical, but also like the mental and all that goes into it, nutrition, all that good stuff. So, Beauche, we'll start with you. How did you get ready for the tryouts? You said you were at USAUs not too long before the tryouts, so your prep was probably a bit different than the East Coasters there.
Yeah. So, I think I saw it as a very long process. So, my preparation is like 2 years or more. Like, to me, it's a bit like, all my Frisbee career was the preparation for that tryout, because it's like the pinnacle of like what I can achieve in Frisbee. So it's like, all the things that I've done like 10 years ago and then 8 years ago. And then, so it's been like a big buildup of things that I've done. More recently, like I would say in the last 2 years with COVID that hit, and I was on Team Canada. So it was like very high and then a very low. And then I had to have a goal for myself. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna like focus on World Games. So I put more like short-term goals into my like plan. So 2 years ago, I started doing physio, but I wasn't injured. It was just because my physio was very good, and I was like, can we work on stuff while I'm like in good shape and just work on more like mobility and like just like running technique and stuff like that. So I worked with him, and then he sent me to a running coach. So I started sprint session with that running coach. I reached out to a nutritionist with the Canadian Sport Institute and started working with a nutritionist there. And I started doing sports psychology as well, on top of like all the Mike Haydock workouts. So like it was a big chunk of all the things that I could do to make that dream happen, because it became a dream within those years. And then I was like, I'm getting close. So let's just put all the chances on my side.
That's so amazing, Beauche. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was nodding my head furiously and smiling because that just like, I kind of wanted that answer, because people think getting ready for these tryouts, you just got to train physically, but there's a lot of other aspects to it. But I'm going to let these two answer as well. So, Alyssa, why don't we start with you? How did you prepare for the tryouts?
Mentally, I think I'm kind of the opposite of Beauche, where 2 years ago, I didn't think this was even on the table, especially just a small town girl coming from Cambridge, Ontario, and hadn't really played much ultimate, and then trying out for sixers and making it. But then over the pandemic, when there was just no ultimate, I was like, okay, I'm just going to train as hard as I can. So I was doing HSP all summer, and I got really into rock climbing, which I think helped a lot, just core strength and everything. And then the Sixers tryouts happened in like August, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna come out firing, and World Games is ultimately my main goal this year. So I put like every time I practiced, I went in practicing with intent. Like even if people were like, oh, it's a fun practice, I was like, it'll be fun, but I'm coming in like every throw, I'm thinking I am gonna get better, and that's been my whole mental process.
Nice to get a insight into it, right? So, Mikey, what about you? You kind of do a double duty, right? Playing in the AUDL as well as club, so you got a lot going on in the mind,
yes.
And physically as well. So, how do you prepare for the tryouts?
That's a really good segue, because that is exactly my first level of preparation. I would say is to not get injured, and that is obviously preventative. You want to go into any ultimate season doing things to prevent future injuries. But again, stuff happens. It's not always that simple. So yeah, the first level of preparation was staying healthy. And I've had injuries. Oh man, let's think. 2018 and 2017, I had, pretty much the entire season was wiped off because of injuries. So that first level of staying healthy was huge this past season, knowing that tryout was coming up. Both really, really good point that you had about, setting it up like years in advance. I wouldn't say I was, I've been, lifting to, 2 years from now, I know this tryout or anything. But I remember this one clip, and I really hope I'm not getting the wrong clip here, of Jeff Bomber Powell laying out in the end zone. It's a really big clip. I think that was a World Games clip. And I remember seeing that and being like, okay, I want to be on this team. I don't know if it's going to be this round or the next round, whatever it is. I want to be there. So yeah, that kind of like in terms of the mental, that like really clicked for me. I was like, okay, this is super cool. In terms of physical preparation, I think COVID was really hard for me to like stay active. It was nice for sure getting a break from Ultimate, because you get a sense of that burnout. I think in university we had obviously University Ultimate, GOAT, Rush, and it felt like it was nonstop for 4 years. So the break was really nice. But coming out of it, like the primary thing that I did was keeping my cardio up, was just cycling. And I felt that it honestly prepared me really well, with other supplemental stuff too. But yeah, that's the gist.
Amazing.
And
go ahead.
And Danie, I'm sure as you're listening to this, we get 3 different approaches, right? We all think, oh, maybe they all are cut from the same cloth. We're all doing different things. Running coach here, rock climbing there, cycling. So love to see the mix and stuff. So now, Danie, I know you got a really good question now coming up for our guests.
I'm actually going to mash 2 questions together because I think they're sort of related. So it's a 2-parter, everybody. So part 1, we kind of touched on it a little bit in that last answer. So I'm going to move this question up. And so I kind of am curious if there was like a light bulb moment or some sort of trigger or something that happened for you all where you thought, maybe I could make this team in the future. Because for a lot of people, it's a fairy tale, it's a dream. But then there's something that happens, like Alyssa, you were talking about how 2 years ago this wasn't on your radar. So when did it become on your radar? What was that moment? So that's part 1. And the second part is what does it mean to you to be named to this initial roster? So how did you feel when you got the email, for example? Let's start with Alyssa this time.
I mean, yeah, like I said, 2 years ago, this wasn't on my radar. And I don't know if it was necessarily a light bulb moment. I think just, everyone, like some people went different ways during COVID, where some people, continued to train hard and other people didn't. And I continued to train hard. And I was like, I think that after I was throwing maybe like 4 times a week, and I was like, maybe now that my throwing is where my athleticism is, I have a chance of making this team. So, like I said, came out firing for Sixers, and it was great having Carla around constantly. because I think she got to see how much I had progressed from like pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. So I was probably at the start of Sixers season where I was like, okay, I can do this. And then, I mean, being named to the athlete pool, it was amazing. I thought it was a really great opportunity. And then I was actually at work when I got the call about the team. And at first I was like, he was like, oh, this is Matt. And I was like, I'm sorry, who? Because I had no idea who it was.
Maddie B, got it.
Yeah. And he told me it, and I was elated. It was just dreams coming true that I didn't even know I had 2 years ago, and it just feels on top of the world. And it's honestly an honor to just be on a team with amazing athletes that are gonna, help me be better in the long run. And they're gonna push me, and I'm gonna learn so much from them. And then also just 2 amazing coaches, and I already know Carla's amazing, and just from what I've seen from Maddie, he's also been amazing. So I'm excited to, continue this journey with everyone.
I didn't know that they called you. That is a really nice touch. So Mike, did you get the phone call? Where were you?
I was on the couch right over there. And it was so funny because I remember I got, I think Carla messaged me and, she phones me once and then I didn't pick up, and she messaged me right after and goes, hey, are you free for a phone call soon? And I was, just completely nondescript, like no exclamation point, obviously me reading into it too far. But I was like, that's it. I'm cut. Like, this is it. Like, this is going to be, the sad hours for the next couple of days as I, soak up the loss. But no, then I picked up the call, and there's Carla on the other end, all happy. And I was like, there's a chance. There's still a chance. and then, yeah. But yeah, I mean, to relate back to the questions, light bulb moment. And then what was the second part?
No, just like, was there a moment where you thought, like, all of a sudden went from thinking I could never to I could potentially?
Yeah, I would say not one specific moment. But it's like kind of thinking back to like how I progressed in kind of like my ultimate experience. I feel like I've tried out for teams, and I've made teams. And then every time I make a team, obviously it's super exciting, but there's usually that like next step. You set your eyes on something else, whatever that ends up being. And I think this was really that next step of a team. And then again, the next step on this is making that top 7. So there's always that, like, you have to have your eyes set on like what you're working for. But yeah, this team was absolutely, again, obviously like the light bulb moment. I remember thinking when I saw that video of Bomber making that layout, I was like, oh, this is like the world stage. It's just like unrivaled. So that was definitely the moment. Yeah.
It's funny, Mike, because I saw the video, and I had 2 friends of mine that were playing. It was Jessie Grignon and Audrey Saint-Arnaud. And I remember seeing them and just being like, wow, they're so good. And it never crossed my mind that I could be there one day. And then like maybe 3 years ago, I think, I went to Riot tryouts for fun, and they were like still high ranked in the USAU ranking. And I went there and I had a good tryouts. And I remember being there and being like, oh, I could play that level. And like that opened my mind a little bit. It was like, oh, like I've been playing with Iris for a long time. And then I was like, oh, but I can play there. And then 2 years ago, I think, I was talking with Rumi, a friend of mine, and he was like, oh, so now you're going to try out for World Games? And I was like, no, I don't think. And he's like, well, I think you should. And then it started growing on me, and 2 years later, here I am. So yeah, it's like been a long, like, I see what you mean, Mike, like the stairs that you want to climb, and like always reaching higher. And I was always trying to reach higher, sometimes within my own team, and like trying to perform better. And then once that I started like traveling a bit more, I'm like, oh yeah, there's also like trying to see bigger goals and bigger teams. And yeah,
That's so interesting. I know exactly what you mean. Like that feeling of, looking at a group of players that you've, I'll use the word idolized or whatever it is. And then you realize like you can hang with them. That's the best feeling. I've experienced that exact same thing. Like, with that whole group, like Cam, Carol, all of those guys. I remember a few instances of just, one moment, like clicking and me realizing like I'm almost there. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can almost feel myself, being able to hang with them. It's just such a special feeling.
Do you all know that you are those people for another generation of people that are going to be watching y'all play Frisbee, and they're like, I could be Alyssa one day, I could be Bosch, I could be Mike with that flowing locks. Okay, Bosch, where were you when you got the call? Did they call you too? Did they try to say it in French?
Nope, it was Maddie B, but I got a voicemail, so we all got different things. So me, I missed the phone call, and an hour later, I looked at my phone, and I was like, oh. So I listened to the phone call, and I didn't have like a name on my phone for like, Maddie B. So it was just like a random number. So I was almost gonna like delete it, and I was like, I'm gonna listen to it. And then I'm like, started tearing up, and I'm like, yes, I made it. So in my apartment.
Aw, that's so lovely.
Yeah, that was fun.
And Danie, you put it well there that this is the next generation. We brought it for you on the Huckin podcast, so come on. We got the younger generation. I know a lot of the Elevate kids, Danie, they love listening to the podcast, so they're for sure going to be listening to this episode. And so now is your chance to give back in a slight way by offering some tips. So people listening, maybe they're over the hill like myself and they're never going to, play or whatever, or maybe they're people that want to play at this level and are super excited. So either way, we want the tips. We're going to start with Alyssa. Give us the tips that you have for trying to get to this next level.
Honestly, this question brings me back to a moment with Cam Harris I had. And we were talking about, like going into these tryouts, and Cam looked at me and he goes, the only thing that is stopping you from making this team is that you do not think you're as good as you actually are. And I think that's just such like, it stuck with me since that day and going into tryouts. And I think to be the best, you have to believe that you are the best. And you have to go into every tryout with that, and, not comparing yourself to the other people on the team. Cause especially like I know I've done my fair share of idolizing people where I'm like out there and I'm like, oh my God, I can't cover this person. Like they're so good. And you just can't do that. You got to be like, I'm Alyssa Mason. I can cover this person, no problem, because I'm just as good. And yeah, I think that mentality going into it is just so important. And then obviously like the training and, making sure that you're keeping up with that and going into practice with intent stuff.
Bosch, what about you?
There's a friend of mine, like 10 years ago when I first started, she said, control the things that you can control. And it's Marie-France Hiver. So it's like my first coach of Frisbee ever. And still to that day, it's like, yeah, that's right. Like at that time when she told me that, I was like, oh, it means nothing. And like since I started playing, I'm like, oh, I hear that all the time. And it's right. Like, I don't think I have any like a gift for Frisbee. Like to me, Anush, she has gift. She's so good at throwing. Like she's so gifted. She came to the world with a Frisbee in her hand, and then she knew how to throw on the throws. Me, I didn't have that. I had to like practice. And so it's like, I think like I had many things under my control, like what I'm eating, what I'm doing with my free time, what I'm doing with my workout, and what I'm doing with like my, like all the things that I've talked before. So it's like, just like putting the work and being mindful when I'm doing it, like trying to improve, because there's also players that have been playing for 20 years that never improved. So it's like, you need to, as Liz was saying, like have an intent when you go practicing all your skills and like trying to improve and like control control all the moments, and then it's going to pay off at the end. At least it worked for me so far.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Mikey, you're going to wrap up this part for us. Give us some tips there from Peterborough, Ontario.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a big ask. I will flow right off Bosch here. Sachin Reina said this. I think this was one of our, maybe this was 2016. I'm not sure on the rush, but Sachin, gave us like his 2 cents for the season. And it's a very similar piece of advice. It's the Venn diagram of things you can control and things that matter. And that intersection are the only things that, should be on your mind. The only things that should actually have any weight in the moment. And that's resonated with me a lot. And I think that kind of loops back to the tryout that we just had, the World Games tryout. It was super windy, which sucked. I would say throwing isn't my forte. I would say I'm a good thrower, but it's definitely not, where I shine or anything. So kind of boiling it down to, okay, what can I control? Can I control the wind? Not really. Does it matter that my throws are bad right now? Not really, because everyone's on the same playing field and like no one was making good throws. So that was kind of, things that can control, things that matter. And then on top of that, really giving your best effort. And again, this loops back to that same tryout. Everyone's having bad throws, but I knew that if I brought a level of intensity and drive, even when something bad would happen, I knew like that would be the best way to show my skills, was to just keep playing, make the throws that I can, but just try not to push anything. Yeah.
We appreciate the tips. That's the tips for you, next generation. And so all three of you got some advice from other people. So this is just the prompt from the universe to then give advice to other people like you got. So that's really good. And Danie, I've been waiting for this because I know you got a question. So I'm just gonna throw it to you. You got a question.
Okay, so I myself have had the distinct displeasure and pleasure of building teams and having to cut people and put people on rosters. I've been both cut and I've also made rosters, so I feel like I've got a good handle on it. And so, Alyssa, this question is targeted at you. So I am curious, just your perspective or your thoughts, because from when I know like Sixers was kind of posting about this on social media channels that y'all were really proud to have so many people. I think 9 past or current Sixers players are on this first roster. And conversely, if you count Bosch as being traffic, 2 for traffic. And I know that Sixers was a stronger team this year, so that kind of makes sense. But do you have any kind of guesses as to why it kind of went that way? Because I think the last time it was more heavily West.
I mean, that's a tough question. I don't think it necessarily came down to like, people played traffic or people played Sixers. I think Carla did, and both Carla and Maddie did a great job of objectively looking at the players and being like, which of these females are going to be the best for these roles. And it just so happened that, I mean, this cycle, a lot of them happen to be on the East Coast. And then I think also they might have taken chances just on like younger players. I think there's a lot more younger players this time around, where I think last cycle there was a bit more experience. So I think those are my thoughts on that. But like I said, I'm not too sure what's going on in Carla or Maddie's brain.
Yeah, I guess I asked the question because like as a selector, there is something to be said about having a core group of people that are really comfortable in a system and have played together and can train together. And then I think that is a genuine strategy. So I was just curious about kind of how you saw it, because I wonder like if sometimes you would pick maybe more of the open players from one system and more of the women players in another system. And I'm just more interested and intrigued by it as a coach. And I think everyone who made the roster deserved it. And it's going to be pretty cutthroat to see who ends up making the top 7 on each side.
I was going to say East Coast, West Coast, but then if you go to the male side, it's like all West Coast guys. So
yeah,
doesn't really reflect.
That is the follow up. It is a lot of Furious on the open side.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think the same pieces can be said. That there's some really, really fantastic ultimate players out west, and I think they really did a good job at just selecting who would be the best for the roles. So
yeah, Danny, was that the spice you wanted, or you're hoping for a next level there? What were you thinking?
No, that was magic. That was poetic. Thank you.
And I know, if you make this squad, you get to go to, Dan, I believe it's Birmingham, Alabama. Is that where World Games is taking place?
It's everyone's dream location.
Yeah, everyone's dream location. You get to go to Birmingham, Alabama, but it's not the city you're worried about. It's being able to represent Canada on that stage. So we appreciate you all coming in, taking time out of your day. We finally coordinate the schedules, so do appreciate that. Before we sign off, anyone have any lasting thoughts, words of wisdom, a proverb, or, anything that they want to share to the Huckin audience before we sign out of this segment here?
I have an off the cuff question for everybody. For all of you, like, you've been playing with people that have made this team before, or maybe you've seen them kind of grow up. I know you're all kind of relatively young on these rosters, but is there anyone that made this kind of second, I guess, initial roster? That doesn't make sense, but that you're like, kind of like, yeah, let's go. Like, somebody makes it and you're like, you're kind of proud of them or something like that. Is there anyone that you're like, this person clearly had like a late pop off or something, like maybe they've kind of come out of nowhere and just showed up?
Yeah, I have a person, and nice. She may or may not be, part of this call. I think, Alyssa, listen, let me explain first, okay? Because that is not a shot at you. You have worked your ass off for, you've been working your ass off for a while, but the last 2 years, I remember talking to Alyssa probably maybe right before the pandemic or maybe sometime during it. And she was saying how excited she was that, she had the opportunity to grind here, and it has paid off. So just thought I'd highlight that, but yeah.
That's cute. We love that.
I'm not sure I understood the question. Someone on the team?
Yeah, so somebody that made it that you're maybe like, that you think, I don't know, if sort of proud of in a way, or like you think that maybe they're a little bit younger and they must have worked really hard to get there, for example. So like there's people that have made the roster, like Beauche, when you made it, I was like, yes, Beauche, like I know how hard you've worked. It just kind of like made my heart feel a little warm. So I was just curious if you had anyone on the roster that kind of made you feel like that.
I'm like, I need the list now. I'm like,
no, it was if you don't have anyone, that's also fine. It was just a curiosity more than anything.
I don't know the boys that much, and the girls, I'm very happy to get to play with Jessie, but to me, it's not a surprise that she's on the team. So it's like,
that's fair. Yeah. That's fair.
I actually have two people that I want to mention. I don't know a lot of the guys, so I can't speak on that. But one of them is Molly Lewis. Not to say she hasn't been an amazing player for so long, but I know that she's been grinding, and we played D-line together on Sixers. So it's just been super great to play with her over the years, and just her grind and her grit on defense, and her throws have just gone from, I watch her throw, and then 2 years ago, and I see her throw now, and she's just throwing like full flick bombs, and it's been insane to see, and just laying out for discs. And so I'm really happy that she made the roster, and we get to continue on our defensive grind together. And then also, to no surprise, is Britt Dos Santos. No surprise there, but she's one of my best friends, and she's just still so young, and it's insane to know that, we get to experience this together. And there's still times where I'm scared to cover her, because I'm like, okay, Britt's going to get open on me. Britt's going to do Britt things. And
For those of you that are watching, you might have noticed that we lost somebody, but we are going to power on without Mike. He'll maybe join us again in a little bit, but yeah, I think we can probably leave the floor for you two if you want to say anything last, and then if not, we can let you go to train and lift and eat healthy food. Mike is back.
I'm back
too.
on my phone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just
here.
Great.
Let me. Woohoo! The blue screen.
Oh.
The blue screen of death, it looks like, or something.
Exactly.
So yeah, this is just us opening the floor. If anyone wants to say any last words.
Thank you for having us on the podcast. I think it's cool, and I'm excited that the Elevate kids are enjoying it and are listening to that. It's like super cool for, like, as you said, the next generation. And I see your good work, and you're doing very great, Danie and Theo. So thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Bosch.
Yeah, I can double down on that. I appreciate this and the opportunity to, hop on here and chat with you folks. So thank you so much.
Yeah, obviously starting that. Thanks for having us. And I was super excited to get the message from Theo, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks everybody for taking the time out of your busy schedules to talk World Games with us. We really appreciate it. You're all inspiration to not only Theo and myself, but to everybody that's listening. So good luck with the whole process. We will definitely be rooting for you, and everyone who listens will also be rooting for you because you're now part of the Huckin family. So thanks again. Welcome back, everybody. So that was really exciting to have those guests on. If you're listening to this, I just want you to know that we stayed on with those guests for a very good chunk of time, just talking about their experiences, talking about Frisbee. And I wish we kind of recorded it, but we said off the record. So we got some more juice out of them. It was really, really good conversations talking about stuff, and they were all giddy. It was a good time. So it's been like an hour since we talked to them, but we can recap a little bit of what we think. So first of all, Theo, was there anything that they said that stood out to you?
To be honest, the first thing that I will say, like right on my head, is Bosch talking about all the things that she did.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of athletes need to do this, and they don't, which is fine. But like the running coach, because yes, people know how to run, but like learning from a track coach or like a sprint coach specifically, like that's sick. Like, so doing that, getting the physio, getting a nutritionist, like that is, people think, oh, that's like next level. But like the elite athletes in other sports do that. Like that's what they do. So like if you're trying to be the pinnacle of this sport, you should do the same and be like them. So hockey players have nutritionists. They have a skate coach. They have all those things that they do. Same thing with other sports. So it just makes sense that Bosch would do that. It just stuck out to me because I hope the younger generation that's listening will invest in themselves like Bosch did, and maybe they can get there.
Yeah, I agree. It's super cool. And she has kind of popped off in the last couple of years. So the efforts that she is putting in are definitely translated on the field. She was so integral to our success on traffic this season, both offense and defense. She could do whatever. So it definitely paid off. And for me, what I just noticed about all three of them, and maybe it's obvious, but when we're kind of given a situation in our lives that could be disruptive, COVID-19 is kind of what I'm referring to. Like people kind of took it in a lot of different ways. And some of that was because they had to, like maybe they had to stop training because they had to work more, or they were taking care of people, or I know that there's lots of different situations, but it seemed like for all three of the people that were on the call, they did kind of take that as an opportunity one way or the other, whether that was doing lots of Frisbee specific training or whether that was doing cross training. And I think that really paid off for all three of them in very different ways. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the different sports. I mean, I talked about it in that segment, but yeah, just trying different things will allow you to just be a more well-rounded athlete as well. So I know people want to hear our thoughts, Danny, but really they want to know who to be picked, because that was a long time ago when we recorded that episode. So there was a the athlete pool that you might have seen before, and we were doing some picks for it and had some alternates that we were thinking about, and I think I threw in some players to watch as well. So, how do you want to go about this, Danie? Do you just want to go through what you picked, or like what do you want to do?
Yeah, I can go through the people that I picked that made this initial roster, I guess. And yeah, I want to also say that after I watched the West tryout, my list had changed, and then that list was way more accurate. So this initial roster, there's some people that I had that didn't even end up trying out. So that's my disclaimer. When I redid it after watching the tryout, I was wrong about 2 people on each side. Everybody else I was right about. So it got a lot more accurate after I saw what I was working with. So the people that
you should have bet on Vegas or something.
I know. So for the people that I had in my top 7, I had Chewy, Jessie GT, Laura Kaneshita, Britt Dos Santos, and Lauren Camara right. I was wrong about Terry Whitehead and Penelope Robert. And my next kind of chunk of people, I had Sarah Jacobson. I had Mika in there just as like a maybe, like I thought it'd be a fun, spicy pick, and Anushka. So you said top 10, right? Or are you going to go top 12?
Yeah, because we did a subscriber only with this and we added some extra. So go all the way to 12.
Okay, then I had Molly and then Mingle. So I had some rights, I had some wrongs. I think I was mostly right. But do you want to do your list on the women's side then?
I will. So my 7 that I picked was JGT, Lauren Kimura, Terry Whitehead, Anushka Beaudry, Chewy, Britt Dos Santos, and Sarah Jacobson. I was wrong on just Terry Whitehead. Did she try out, Danie?
Yep.
Or no? Okay.
Yep.
Because some people I think didn't try out, so I just want to and I wasn't at the West tryout. So alternates: Cindy Trong, Laura Mason, Naomi Morsilla, Jessica Rockcliffe, and Sarah Bobak. So I was right on Bobak and Cindy Trong.
Nice. On the open side, I had Kevin Underhill, Malcolm Bryson, Tim Sang, Nathan Hurst, Mike Mackenzie, Alec Arsenault, Morgan Hibbert, Jeff Powell, Ty Barbieri, Andrew Carroll, Christophe Tremblay, and Breton Tan as my top 12. I did pretty good, actually.
There's some, I think you missed on 2.
Yeah.
No, 3.
I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I
should have been more accurate about the women, to be honest.
Yeah, I missed on the open picks. I'm not going to lie to the Huckin audience here. So I had Andrew Carroll, Breton Tan, Kevin Underhill, Morgan Hibbert, Tim Sang, Jeff Powell, and Alec Arsenault in my top 7. And then I had CTJ, Christophe Tremblay-Janka, Phil the Thrill Turner, Peter Yu, Mike Mackenzie, and Pat Bayless as my alternates. So I only got 7 right. Oh, ouch. So I got 7 right there.
Do you want to know what's crazy? Besides
what?
Mike Mackenzie, we were not believers in 2 of our guests initially.
That is true. Whoa. Our guests are going to expose us. I had Alyssa Mason in my subscriber segment of players to watch. I will just defend myself. I have it right there.
It's interesting because like I think Alyssa Mason has really popped off. She's always been a really strong defensive grinder and her offensive skills have just seemed to catch up. And with Beauche, I'd played with Beauche on Chippos and it was not at the same level as say Traffic or Iris. And so actually getting to play a full season with her this year, when I redid my list, she was top of my list. So just like a huge difference, like actually being able to be a teammate with her and seeing the impact that she can have on the field was just like completely game changing in how I thought about her as a player. So it's just amazing. Like you never know. No one's really a lock. You can train hard for a couple years and you can round out some rough edges and be a top player.
It's true. And we got to give some love to people that neither of us picked as well, along with, some of the guests that we had on as well. So we both didn't have Hannah Dawson. So kudos to you, Hannah. Looking around on the list here, Molly Lewis, Robbie Brennan. I don't think either of us picked him.
No.
Will I Am Vu. So Will I Am Vu wasn't even in the applicant pool, so we couldn't have picked him. and that is pretty cool that he made it. Malik Ojay-Samar, he was someone I was looking out for, but I ultimately didn't pick him. And I believe that is it. One of us either picked the rest of those players that were selected. So what do you think, first of all, Danie, about someone not in the applicant pool making it? Because there's only one. I thought maybe there could be some others because there were some big names that, if you follow Canadian Open Ultimate, you know the name Cam Harris and Mark Lloyd, and they weren't on the initial applicant pool list. And from my knowledge, they were not at tryouts, but I could be proven wrong. So, what do you think about that? One person making it.
For the record, I did have Molly on my list. So.
Oh, you did? Shoot.
Yeah. So shout out Molly. I believe in you, homegirl. So for Will Vu, I just think it's a very Will Vu thing to be the only one not on the athlete pool and just like be like, yo, I'm here. Gonna make this team. So I think it's perfect. I just think it's grand. Wouldn't be anyone else.
Will, I've seen Will play. I believe I've called him in one of my broadcasts a loose cannon because he's just a gunslinger on D-line. And when he's on, he is on. And so, he's one of the 12 open players selected. And so we'll see where they go from there. But that list is going to get narrowed down. We talked to the guests afterwards, as Danie had previously mentioned, and they were talking about some training camps and things that they're going to be a part of. So be really cool to check in with them a few months from now and see what they're up to. But the top 7 from each gender, they'll be in Birmingham, Alabama in 2022. And we'll be cheering them on here from Canada.
Yeah, I think they said something like about 4 potential training camps or 4 events or something. And hopefully they're either in Toronto or Vancouver for some of it so we can cover it and show them some love on the podcast because they're heroes out there just being so inspirational to all the next generation and to their generation too.
Yeah, you got to realize, audience, they are considered, they are the 7 best players of their gender in the whole country. That's legit. I can't understate how cool that is.
I wish we'd asked this question, and I had thought about it earlier in my run, but then didn't write it down. But I'm just curious because I know when the coaches post the types of roles that they're looking to fill, whether that's in anyone's mind, whether they're like, oh, I need to really showcase my strengths, or do you really work on the things that you think are your deficits, and whether any of them had a strategy like that. I think I would assume, knowing kind of the 3 of them and how they play and how they operate, they just want to be as good as they can at everything. But I should have asked. Maybe I'll DM them right now and get back to you all after.
Actually, Danie, I'm going to throw this question right back on you as a selector. So, especially because you're picking a bit younger players here, U20 level. So, are you looking for just one skill that they can pop off of? Because I feel like someone like Darren Wu, for example, when he made it all the way back in 2014, ages ago now, he was a pretty raw player from my knowledge, and so I think he was picked more for his athleticism, if I'm not mistaken. So, is that something you're considering as well? If you just see some athletic 18-year-old, 17-year-old, and they're just jumping out the gym and making some incredible plays, you're going to pick them even though they might not have the disc skills to back it up.
Totally. And in juniors specifically, there's so many turnovers that if you have beast athletes that can kind of run all over the field, you can put them on, they do their job, they put their hand down, they grind. You don't care if their forehand form is 10 out of 10 flawless. You can work on that, but you can't teach that inner fire, that grind. So there's many roster spots are saved for just beast athletes that know how to work really hard. And there are some roster spots that are specifically for people that are talented with the disc, but it's not as many.
Yeah, this is what I've heard, Danie. It's easier, and you said it too, it's easier to teach disc skills to an athletic beast than it is to teach someone with disc skills to be an athletic beast because there's the genetic component in there. So, that's all I got to say about that.
Well, I'm going to do a specific shout out to this exact thing, and this might embarrass this person, but I don't care. So, Cheryl Andre, she's actually management now with Elevate, but I didn't even know this person before the U20 tryout. I don't remember really seeing her play. There's no footage of a clips that year. And at the tryout, she was just flying, layout blocks, grinding. Like, I don't remember her throws at all. I just remember like that fire, and she ended up scooping up one of the last spots on that roster. And even though we didn't play or compete, I think like she showed a lot of that, exactly what you're saying, that athleticism. And she wasn't a talented thrower, but guess what she was this year? O-line for traffic. So it just goes to show you that like you can teach an athlete how to throw and where to be on the field. You can't teach an unathletic person how to jump high, how to be aggressive, how to train hard. It's much harder. So that's my rant over. Shout out Cheryl, you're dope.
Yeah, I could talk about this all day because I have not been gifted with the athletic abilities of some of my counterparts here. So I understand there's like a limitation to it. Anyways, we could rant about this all day.
Yeah, we could.
That's why I'm on the media side now. You know what I mean? So come on. But there is a genetic component, but there's also a work hard component, as you mentioned, and we definitely don't want to understate that. For the three people that were on, you heard that. Yeah, sure, they have gifts, but they're also cultivating them by working hard. So want to throw that in there as well, Danie. Don't just be a beast athlete and not train. You got to train too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much for sticking out with us. I know it's been a long time since we had our podcast, but we hope you really enjoyed this one. This is one of my favorite ones that we've been able to do. So I hope you like it. And our next episode, I know we've talked about this before, but we're really hoping to do something on spirit. We are just trying to find a second person that we think would really showcase that episode well. So if you can think of someone that you think would be a great or even spicy panelist, especially if they're female matching, hit us up. You can hit up our socials. It's a good time to plug the socials anyways. At Huckin on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're not very active on Facebook or Twitter, but Instagram, slide into our DMs. You can email us at huckin@whateverultiworld.com. Is that right? Ask every time.
Danie, keep plugging it. You're killing it. Tell them to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Do it right now.
Subscribe, and tell us that we're nice people in the comments. Cool.
All right. We'll catch you in a couple weeks here. So peace out.
Hey, this is Jack Eagles, captain of the McGill Men's A Ultimate Team, and you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.